In the span of a heartbeat, we decide. We decide whether we trust, whether we like, whether we believe. It happens in silence before a word is spoken, and it happens fast within the first 7 seconds of meeting someone new. This is the psychology of first impressions, a story written by the brain long before we realize it, and one that shapes every encounter of our lives. Thousands of years ago, when survival was uncertain, meeting a stranger was dangerous. A new face could be a friend or a threat. There was no time for hesitation. The human brain evolved a shortcut. It learned to read faces, voices, and movements instantly, choosing in seconds whether to fight, flee, or trust. This instinct lives on inside us today. Except now, instead of deciding whether to share food or defend a campfire, we use it to judge a colleague in an interview, a stranger on the street, or even a photo online. What feels like intuition is really survival's legacy. When we meet someone new, the brain conducts a rapid scan. Psychologists call this a thin slice of information. In an instant, we notice the warmth of a smile, the firmness of a handshake, the tilt of posture, even the tone of a single word. These small signals combine into a story about who that person is. A story we trust, even when it isn't true. Research from Princeton University found that people decide whether someone looks trustworthy in just 1/10 of a second. 1/10 faster than a blink, faster than conscious thought. Two people can speak the exact same words, but how they look while saying them can change everything. We like to believe we judge based on substance, but psychology reveals otherwise. A confident stance, steady eye contact, or a warm expression can influence us more than any argument or fact. This is why leaders rehearse their gestures, why job seekers practice their handshakes, why even a single photo can define success or rejection on a dating app. It may feel unfair, shallow even, but the truth is, appearances are never just surface. To the brain, they are signals, ancient cues, and we read them instinctively whether we want to or not. In just 7 seconds, a stranger decides who you are. Trustworthy or suspicious, confident or weak, likable or forgettable. Think back to your own life. The last job interview, the last time you met someone new. Did you feel drawn to them? Did you pull away? Chances are, your brain had already decided before the conversation even began. But here's the unsettling truth. These judgments, so fast, so certain, are not always right. Sometimes they're wrong, sometimes devastatingly wrong. And yet, they shape the friendships we build, the opportunities we're given, and the chances we never take. In the next chapter, we'll uncover how these silent judgments ripple outward, into our relationships, our careers, even our systems of justice, and why the 7-second verdict may hold more power than we ever imagined. Before a word of evidence is spoken, before the first witness steps forward, the judgment has already begun. Jurors glance at the accused. Is the face kind or cruel? Honest or deceptive? Trustworthy or dangerous? In that fleeting moment, destiny can be decided. Freedom or prison? Justice or prejudice? This is the hidden power of first impressions. Wrinkled shirt, unkempt hair. The CEO's verdict in 2 seconds. Not executive material. Next floor, crisp suit. Confident posture. Same CEO thinks leadership potential. Both are software engineers with identical qualifications. The promotion decision was made before either said a word. Firm handshake. Decisive. Soft voice. Weak. Too friendly. Unprofessional. Too reserved. Not a team player. Studies show hiring managers decide within moments. Years of experience reduced to a 7-second judgment. Once labeled, confirmation bias takes over. The interviewer sees only evidence that supports their snap decision. David speaks deep voice. Expensive watch. Instant authority. Jennifer presents identical data. Higher pitch, younger face. Colleagues check phones. Same content, different messenger, different fate. Foreign accent becomes hard to understand. State school becomes less sophisticated. Modest dress becomes not ambitious. And once judged, the prison door is hard to unlock. Because the workplace rarely gives second chances to rewrite the story of the first 7 seconds. In these silent judgments, careers are shaped. Opportunities are decided. Futures are rewritten, sometimes forever. 7 seconds. That is all it takes for a stranger to decide who you are. And that decision may echo for years, long after the moment has passed. But how does the brain work this magic? What hidden machinery turns glances into verdicts? To answer that, we must travel inside the mind itself. In the next chapter, we'll explore the secret architecture of the brain, the ancient circuits that make first impressions so powerful and so difficult to escape. Have you ever wondered how your brain forms first impressions? It's a fascinating process that happens in the blink of an eye, yet can have lasting impacts on our relationships and decisions. Let's dive into the psychology behind this lightning-fast judgment system. Our brains operate on 2 levels when forming impressions, System 1 and System 2. System 1 is quick, instinctive, and emotional, while System 2 is slower, more deliberate, and logical. When we first encounter someone, our amygdala, the brain's emotional center, kicks into high gear, making split-second judgments based on visual cues and past experiences. Meanwhile, our prefrontal cortex, responsible for reasoning and decision-making, starts to analyze the situation more carefully. It's like having a gut feeling and then taking a moment to think it through. This dual process allows us to navigate social situations efficiently while still leaving room for deeper consideration. The neurochemistry behind first impressions is equally intriguing. When we meet someone we find attractive or trustworthy, our brains release dopamine, creating a positive association. This halo effect can lead us to attribute other positive qualities to that person, even without evidence. On the flip side, if we sense danger or dishonesty, stress hormones flood our system, triggering a horn effect that paints the person in a negative light overall. Interestingly, these initial impressions tend to stick around due to confirmation bias. Once we form an opinion, we subconsciously seek out information that supports it while dismissing contradictory evidence. This is why first impressions can be so powerful and difficult to change. But what about those subtle cues we pick up on? Our brains are incredibly adept at detecting micro-expressions and body language signals that indicate stress, deception, or genuine warmth. These non-verbal cues often speak louder than words, influencing our impressions before a single word is exchanged. It's worth noting that while our brains are remarkably efficient at forming these snap judgments, they're not always accurate. Cultural differences, personal biases, and contextual factors can all skew our perceptions. That's why it's crucial to remain open-minded and willing to revise our initial impressions as we gather more information. Understanding the psychology behind first impressions can help us navigate social situations more effectively and make more informed decisions about the people we meet. By being aware of our brain's tendencies, we can strive to form more balanced and fair assessments of others, leading to richer, more authentic connections in our personal and professional lives. Every encounter begins the same way: a glance, a judgment, a story written in silence. For most of history, these snap decisions were a matter of survival. But in the modern world, they shape something just as powerful: who we trust, who we follow, and who we let into our lives. The question is not whether first impressions matter, they do. The question is, can we rise beyond them? First impressions cling tightly. They filter what we notice, coloring how we see others. But research shows they are not unbreakable. Given time, through conversation, shared experience, or repeated encounters, our accuracy improves. In the beginning, the brain fills the silence with assumptions. But with patience, the story expands, layers reveal themselves, and sometimes we discover that our first judgment was wrong. If 7 seconds can define us, then shaping them becomes a skill. Psychologists suggest 3 keys: presence, how you walk into a room; your posture, your eye contact, your tone of voice. Confidence is read before it is spoken; warmth, a genuine smile, a simple kindness, a nod of acknowledgement. These small signals tell the brain, you are safe here. Authenticity, pretending rarely lasts. But sincerity, even in nervousness, can create more trust than the most polished mask. Because in those first 7 seconds, people may forget your words, but they will remember how you made them feel. It is not only about how others see us, it is about how we see them. Our first impressions often say more about our fears and expectations than about the people we meet. To overcome them, psychologists recommend a practice called cognitive empathy, the discipline of pausing and asking what story lies beyond what I see. What might I be missing? When we suspend judgment, even for a moment, the world opens. Strangers become neighbors, enemies become friends, and the limits of the first 7 seconds begin to fade. History is filled with second chances that change the world. The shy child dismissed as awkward, who grew into a visionary thinker. The applicant ignored in an interview, who became a groundbreaking leader. The stranger on a bus, who became a lifelong companion. Each of these stories began with a misjudgment, but they did not end there. Because sometimes the truest measure of a person cannot be seen in 7 seconds. It can only be found in the chapters that follow. First impressions are inevitable. They are written into the very wiring of the human mind. But inevitability does not mean destiny. The 7-second verdict may open the story, but it does not have to end it. We can choose to look deeper, to ask, to listen, to learn, to allow people the dignity of being more than our first judgment. And perhaps the greatest impression we can leave is not how we looked in those 7 seconds, but how we made others feel in the moments that followed. In the end, the power of first impressions is not just about who we appear to be, but about who we choose to become.